Hey everyone, Leo with Dreaming Tree, and today we're putting together our anniversary wine bottle wrapper. Essentially, it's a nice way to customize a bottle of wine that you're going to give as a gift. Now, we branded it with a happy anniversary, but the little faux bow, and this is just the prototype, you can just cut this out of whatever, and if you have like a single line font, you can write whatever you want on here. Happy birthday, happy anniversary, congratulations, whatever it may be, and you can customize pretty much any bottle of wine. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to work on the floral piece. You'll notice that in your download you have this little template, and essentially this template is just to kind of help you with the layout of the floral elements. Okay, so just to show you how this works. Essentially, once we get everything trained and folded and creased and bent, we can use this to lay everything out just to make sure that we're in fact gluing everything correctly and in the right location. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to start off with this piece here. Now, all of these floral pieces, I've actually taken the time to ink them just to give them a little extra oomph. Okay, and you'll notice that there's a nice little crease going down. You'll notice that there's a little crease going down the center of this leaf here. And essentially what you want to do is just fold it and bend it right at that crease, and then you want to pinch the tip. And you're going to do the same thing on all of these little petals that have little creases, and then just pinch the very tip, and that's going to give us some nice dimension. It's going to help get those shadows and those highlights to make this really stand out and pop more. Okay, and then for the larger ones, and probably do it with the smaller ones too, I'm going to grab a dowel, and you can actually take and kind of curl these down a little bit so that not only is it pinched in the center, but the sides of the leaves have a nice round look to them. So all I'm doing here is taking the very tip of the little leaf here and pinching it between my finger and the dowel, and then just kind of rolling it onto the dowel to make that section round. Okay, it'll hold that position pretty well. It'll give a little bit, but for the most part, you want to go ahead and do that. So you can see how not only is it creased, but it's got a little bit of a round appearance to it. You can see that from that angle there. Okay, now for the larger ones here, you'll want to use a larger dowel so that you don't risk bending and creasing it. You want it to look as natural as possible. Okay, so I'm just going to give that a little bit of a curl. And it helps not to curl it all in one fell swoop, kind of ease it into the curl and break up those fibers in the paper gently as you go to give it that sort of look. Now, this side may be a little bit more difficult to do, but it's still doable. And you don't have to get crazy with this technique. Just a little bit goes a long way. And then maybe give it one more little pinch when you're all done there. And we can do that here as well on this side. There we go. Okay, so I'm just going to put this down on my template. That's going to go right there, and then we can move on to the next section here. Okay, so our next section is this piece here, and just like we did with the first piece, grab this large petal here, or large leaf, and fold it, and then pinch it at the tip. Then we can take a larger dowel and just kind of, again, round the very outer part of it. Okay, just like that. Very simple. And then we're going to take these smaller leaves here and just pinch these. I think these are probably a little bit too small to try and round, so I'm just going to pinch these and just keep it simple. Okay, so now I'm going to take some glue and make sure your glue bottle is clean. Throw a little bit of glue right in the center of this guy here. Okay, and we're going to take this piece, and you can see where that matches up with our template. And you want to make sure that you get the circular center lined up nicely with the circular center on the first piece that we already have on our template here, okay? If it's off a tiny bit, don't worry about it too much. Okay, so next we've got this last little piece with the center on it, and this guy right here, and we can kind of take, and there's no pinching on this, but if you want, you can kind of train it a little bit just to give it a little bit of a curve so it's not so flat, okay? And then that's gonna go right here like so. So just like we did a second ago, throw a little bit of glue right there. And we'll take this piece and just line that up with our little template. And again, make sure that you get it nice and centered, like that. There we go. And then all that leaves is our flower. And technically, we're kind of done with that. We can move that out of the way and work on our flower here. So, flower's made up of these pieces. We got a total of 5 layers here, and we're going to go from largest to smallest. Okay, and what we're going to want to do with each piece, it's going to be pretty much the same process. We're going to take and fold this up, just kind of bend it in just a little bit, not too much, and then we're going to take and just the very tip of the petals here, just pinch them between your fingers and a dowel, and then curl them back, just nice and even, like that. Actually just kind of pushing it around the dowel, like so. It helps if you need to, use more than one finger to kind of make sure that the entire edge of this is wrapping around the dowel, and just push it around. This is kind of a little bit of a different technique than I usually do, but through trial and error discovered that this warps the paper less doing it that way. Just kind of wrapping it around the dowel rather than running the dowel through it, because it could go like this. And you know what, that works too. Either way. Yeah, see, sometimes you get some unsightly creases, but you know, it's not that bad. Okay, so we're just taking the tips of these and folding them back so that they look like that. Okay, and we can push these up a little bit. And we'll do the same thing with the next layer. So I'm going to take and I'm going to use the wrapping method. So I've got the tip of the petal there, and I'm just going to push it and wrap it around the dowel like so. And I can fold it up. Okay, got the whole thing there. Take my pointer fingers, wrap it around. And the skinnier dowel you use, the more pronounced that wrapping is going to be. So I'm using a skinnier dowel here just to show you the difference. Okay, so you can see how that one kind of curves down more and this one curves a little bit less. So the angle is a little more substantial because, well, the diameter is less on this guy here, on this smaller dowel. And that's fine. Whatever floats your boat, however you want it to look is fine. No right or wrong way. I think ideally you just want the tip of this to be curved, not so much the rest of it. Okay, but that's fine. That looks great. And then fold these up a little bit because we do want to create a little bit of separation between each layer. And at which point you can take some glue, apply it to the center of the first layer, grab your next piece, and we want to stagger these. You don't want the petals right on top of each other. You want to rotate it a little bit so that each little petal here gets its moment in the sun here. Okay, just like that. And then again, you can kind of create a little bit of separation by pulling the petals upward and then moving right on to our next petal. And I'm just going to repeat the same process until I get all of these nice and wrapped around my dowel. There we go. And again, you can do it this way too. Again, I'm trying to get my fingers on the entire tip of the flower so that it all looks consistent throughout and nothing gets creased where it shouldn't. I'm trying to make it look really clean. There we go. Okay, that looks great. So throw your glue in the center here. And just like we did before, just make sure that you stagger the petals so that they're not sitting right on top of each other. So when I say stagger, I guess another way to describe that is just rotate the petals, you know, at least 45 degrees. Okay, then we can kind of pull these back a little bit, create some more separation. Now when we glue this to the wrapper portion, most of this is going to flatten out anyway, but may as well try to fluff it up as much as we can. Okay, now here we're going to fold these in, these last two sections, and just fold the very tips here. Don't overdo it, and actually I might need a thinner dowel on these smaller ones. This is almost a hibachi stick. That's how thin it is. Let me do it like this and just wrap that around. There we go, just like that. Okay, so I'm literally going about halfway down the petal when I do this, not all the way down. Whoops. Use a jumpy one. There we go. You know, even I'm changing up some things and learning things as I go here when I make my flowers. Okay, so nice little bit of glue there in the center. And take a look at your flower. Just make sure that you're staggering these petals nicely so that it's nice and full and also nice and centered. I'll press that down. There we go. And if you need to, you can use a dowel to really push that down so it doesn't go anywhere. And that just leaves us with one more petal here. And again, I'll take that and just wrap it around the dowel ever so slightly. Just the very tip. There we go. There we go. We can fold these in a little bit more, like that. Grab our glue and take a look at it. Make sure that you kind of stagger it. Make it look as full as you can. There we go. Whoops. There we go. Okay. You'll notice that this is the second release in a row where we're getting some flowers going here. I think that's a little bit of an anticipation of spring, which is just around the corner here. It'll be February before you know it. Okay, so there's our flower. And if you want, you can actually, just to kind of make this a little more random, take the very corners of some of these and just fold them in or out. Maybe one of them fold up, a few down. And that is really going to allow the light to play with these and make it a little more interesting, because right now everything's kind of pointing down. But if we just kind of flip a few of these here and there in the upward direction, it'll really add some more interest to the flower. There we go. Okay, so there's the flower itself. Now, one other thing too, while we're here, you'll notice that we have these three little very thin strips. And what we're going to do with these is we're going to take these and literally curl them around the dowel until they're almost completely wrapped around the dowel. You can do it like this, or you can spin the dowel around, whatever it takes. And this is kind of what we're looking for. This sort of thing here. It's a tendril. Reminds me of pumpkins, which remind me of fall, and we're not quite there yet. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We need some warm weather. We need the seasons to progress. There we go, there's another one. And you can just kind of pull it and stretch it out, make it a little bit longer. Okay, just like that. And this one here, you can take that and kind of do that instead. And then maybe another one here. And then maybe you just wrap that around just halfway. And we end up with something like that, and that's fine. And this one might be a little bit too tight. I might loosen that up a little bit. That's fine. Okay. Okay, so our stamen piece here, what we're going to do to put this together is wrap it around itself. Now, I'm using a gold foil. This may seem counterintuitive or backwards, and it kind of is, but you'll see why I'm doing it this way here in just a second. So, to start it off, it'll be helpful to, if you're using gold foil, actually, regardless of what you're using, just start wrapping it around a dowel just to kind of get it going initially. So take your dowel. Actually, it'd probably be better if you use something thinner, like a hibachi stick or like a shish kebab stick. I'm going to use this because it's handy. I don't even know what this is. But putting it down right below where the little teeth are, and I'm just going to start wrapping it around itself. Now, again, I'm using gold foil here, and you'll see why I'm doing it backwards, meaning that I have the white showing and the gold going inside. Okay, so again, get something really thin, thinner than this dowel, which is about, it's less than 1/4 of an inch. So something really thin. And then once you get it going, get it nice and tight. I'm going to unravel it a little bit and essentially just fold it the first few times, just kind of fold it onto itself. And then start wrapping it around it. When you fold it onto itself a few times, it'll start kind of creating a round base there at the bottom. Okay, and once you have it wrapped around a few times, you can take and apply glue to the bottom part here, just below the teeth, all the way down to the very end, and then continue wrapping it. Okay. Just keep on wrapping it all the way down. Keep it nice and tight throughout this process until we get all the way to the end. And then that little line of glue is going to help keep this thing together for us nicely. Okay, just keep on cruising all the way down. You want it nice and tight all the way to the end. And when you get to the end, just press and hold it so it looks like that. Okay, and you're going to want to be patient with this and let it really fully set. Now again, you see how there's white on the outside? The gold is on the inside, and we're going to actually flare this out. While we're holding it, we can actually begin doing that. So simply just take your finger and start flaring it out. Now you see why I kind of did it backwards. If you're using cardstock, it really doesn't matter because you've got color on both sides. Now, in my case, since I'm using foil, well, it's got a white backing, and I don't want the white backing to be the prominent side. I want the gold to be the prominent color showing up. So when you flare this out, that's what you're actually seeing. You're seeing the gold instead of the white. Not really going to see this side all that much because you're going to be looking at it from this angle. Okay, and then if you are using a gold foil like I am, can take this to another level. Again, since we've got that white backing, the tips of these are white, which is a kind of a cool contrast, but you can also kind of eliminate that by grabbing some gold ink and just rubbing that gold ink right on the white tops there, and that will get rid of that white and make this entire thing a nice pretty gold, which is essentially what we really want. We want it to be nice and gold, nice and golden. And there you go. All of a sudden that white is gone. I'm seeing nothing but gold. And that's exactly what we were hoping for. Okay, so there's your beautiful stamen. ready to glue in the center of your flower. Okay, so you want to coat the bottom of the little stamen piece here with some glue. I would go a little bit heavier than usual, but don't overdo it. And then pop that right in the center of your flower. Give that a good press. And let that sit for a bit before we do anything. Of course, we're going to need to let it sit for a bit anyway because well, there's other things to work on. So put that off to the side for a moment. Okay, so here's the tail of our bow. Now it's pretty flat right now. You can see that I inked it with a little bit of a light purple, almost like a violet. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a dowel and we're going to train this. First we're going to train it down, and then I'll take from the halfway point and train it up. Okay, so it's kind of a natural little slope. So again, I'm going to train this thing this way, and then about here, train it the other way. Okay, so you can see how it's got kind of an S shape there. Okay, and now take this guy here, and you'll notice that there's some score marks here in the center. So what we want to do is just fold that, just so that we have a visual on the actual little rectangle there. And we're going to take the other side that has a rectangle, we're just going to fold it over onto the other rectangle. So rectangle on top of rectangle. And we'll put some glue on this little rectangle here. Not a lot, a little bit goes a long way here. Bring it in, match it up with that rectangle there, and make sure that it's nice and flush. And just press and hold that down. If you want to grab your dowel, you can kind of do that, and like you're rolling dough. Get that glue right in there. There we go. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. You'll notice that there's a little rectangle here. Nice easy amount of glue there. Bring that in right on top of the other rectangle. And there you have the beginning of your little bow. I'll take my dowel and just kind of roll that in there. Get that glue into those little fibers. Okay, so there's part of it. Almost there, not quite. Now we've got this piece here. This is a little accent for the bow. This too has a little rectangle that we're going to put right in the center there to match up with the other rectangle. And then these little pointy areas are going to get glued onto the surface of the bow. And it may help to slightly bend these and curl these a little bit so they're not so flat. They'll rest on the round loop of the bow much easier if we do that. And I'm not going to try to do all this in one fell swoop here, so we'll just glue the center down first. Doesn't matter which way. Get that nice and centered onto the little rectangle, and you can see how, since I trained it, it already looks like it's making good contact with the rest of that bow. Okay, in which case you can take this and peel that one side, and just a few little drops of glue here on these little pointy pieces, like so, and then fold that over onto the loop and press that down. Bring that back. A few little dots. Don't go too crazy here. You don't want glue shooting out everywhere. And then fold that over onto the other loop. And there you have that. Okay. And then finally, we've got this piece. And there's two of them that are kind of similar. One's way bigger. We don't want that. We want the smaller one. I'm going to pop that in the center here. Make sure it's centered. And then just take it and fold it back behind the bow. And fold that back. Okay, and then you can flip it over. And we'll just throw a little bit of glue right here. And press this over onto that section there to hold that in place. And that will make the bow look a lot more complete. Okay, so that's that. There you have it. And finally, I'm going to take and just glue this to our tail. And what we're going to do is we're going to put glue on the back of this, like so. I'm going a little bit heavier here, since it's kind of got a little bit of a bulge. And the top of this is going to be flush with the top of that. So pop that on there, get it centered, and get the top of the rectangle on the bow flush with the top flat part of the tail. You could bring it down a tad if you'd like, but try to get it as flush as you can. Okay, let's take a look at it from the front, and there you have it. Beautiful. Okay, so our little bow with our custom tail is done. Okay, now figure out where we want to put our little tendrils here, and we'll get those glued into place. So essentially, this is going to sit on our bottle like this. Okay, and we just kind of want to stagger this a little bit. So I'm going to put one here. Okay, and just a little bit of glue here goes a long way. Just a simple little dot, and get this glued into place like so. And we can always work this and train it however we want once everything's said and done. Okay, then we'll take this one here, and I'm going to unravel it a little bit. This one's going to go up this way, like so. So we'll throw a little dot of glue here, like that. And just press that right into place. And then the last one, kind of like a little tripod here. We'll put that one here. Where'd he go? There he is. I'm going to unravel this one a little bit. That's a little too tight. There we go. And we'll put this guy here, press that down. Our flower should be pretty dry at this point, I would say. In which case, I'm going to try to lift these petals up a little more. They're a little too flat right now, but that's okay because we've been pressing on it and pushing it and doing all sorts of stuff to it. Now's the time to kind of lift these petals up a little bit and make this a little more full. There we go. Okay, we can glue our flower down now. And just put a little bit of glue right in the center here. And we'll take our flower, move the little tendrils out of the way. Make sure we get them nice and centered on there. And press that down. There we go. And we may end up having to kind of fluff these petals up again, because doing that just kind of flattened out some of these. So we can easily, with a dowel, just stick a dowel under there and push. Try to say pull and push at the same time. Just push those petals up a little bit. Just kind of get all the way into the very inside and fold them up. There we go. Okay. All right, so now, last step here is to grab your actual bottle. Now, one thing that we realized was that bottles come in all shapes and sizes, and this wine here, I didn't even realize it at the time, but it does kind of taper a little bit. So it's a little bit wider on top, it gets shorter at the bottom, and that's okay. Essentially what we're going to do is we're going to take this large piece, obviously whatever paper you're using, you're going to take this and you're just going to wrap it around, and just kind of wrap it around a couple times just to train the paper and loosen up some of those fibers so that when it comes time to actually glue this down, it goes on a lot easier for you. Now again, mine's a little tapered, so it's not going to sit completely flat. Okay, a lot of wine bottles, are not tapered. If yours is, don't worry about it. Just do your best to get it on there, because front you won't be able to tell that it's off except for like right back here, and that's not a huge deal. Okay, so once it's sort of trained, okay, you can see that it doesn't sit flat anymore. It's a little bit looser. What we're going to do is we're going to just put glue on one end of this. And the most important thing to remember here is that you actually get glue all the way out to the very edge here. We want that to really stick at the very, very edge. So then you can take your wine bottle and just wrap this around. You can put this down flat on your surface if you'd like. And then I'm kind of pulling it nice and taut. And keep pulling nice and taut until you get it exactly where you want it to go. And then press and hold that down. Okay, so again, mine's going to be a little bit off here, but we can, technically if you want, you can even take an X-Acto if yours is tapered and just cut that off. No one will even know. But if you have a non-tapered bottle, then you should not run into this problem. Yours should be nice and straight all the way around. But you can see how I just kind of cut that off with an X-Acto. Now, I'm really getting OCD here about this. You don't need to take it this far, it's fine. But just make sure you continue to apply pressure here at the seam. Again, we put glue all the way out to the very edge of this, so this should hold very nicely for us. And I'll go ahead and even try to make this just kind of continuous and look seamless, even though it's not necessary. But if you want, now you can see that looks almost continuous. No one's going to notice. And there's the wrapper. Okay, that's done. Very simple. And we're going to do the same thing with the top part here. So that's going to go around like this. So what you want to do is start off by just wrapping it around. Now we gave you a lot of extra slack here to work with. Okay, and even this part for me is tapering a little bit, and that's okay. So just hold it for a second, let the little fibers in the paper kind of release and relax. Okay, and then you can let it go, and you can see that it's no longer flat. And we'll take some glue, put it on the very edge here. Spread that glue out to the very, very edge. And just going to take it, just like we did, and just wrap it around again. Okay, keep it nice and taut. And just press that down. Make good contact with it. And I can bring it down a little bit more. Just make sure that you're holding that in place, because there's a lot of tension here, and this wants to let go, but don't let it go. Let that glue set before you do anything else. Okay, and we can rotate this. Put the seams at the back, obviously. Okay, there we go. That looks great, totally. All right, so now on the top part here, we've got this additional little vanilla piece that we're just going to glue around the center. So we're just wrapping it around, literally. And I'm just going to glue that in place. Just throw a little bit of glue on the very tip of one side. Don't need to get crazy. Okay, and try to keep the seams in the same spot as the other seam. And just glue that into place. Make sure that as you're gluing it, you're keeping it nice and tight, nice and taut. And hold that in place for a moment. I've got both of my seams in the same spot, but you can see what the front of that looks like. That's all we're really interested in anyway. Try to get that nice and centered here. And then it's just a matter of putting this on there. So our little bow is going to go right there. So you can take some glue and we'll glue that in place. Again, find the seam, go right to the front and get that glued in place. Just press and hold that for a moment. Make sure it's level. That's going to be key. Okay. There we go. So you can see what that looks like. That's nice. And then finally, Just need to put our little flower in place here, and flower is going to be centered. Okay, obviously we want to keep all of the floral above the bottom. We don't want that floating and hitting the table. Okay. Okay, so one other thing here, the little stamen in the center, you can feel free to spread these out a little bit more to make them a little more full. Okay, I was probably being a little cautious with this from the get-go, but once I kind of spread them out more, everything just seemed to look right, so to speak. Okay, so this leaf here, let me put this in this angle here. That's going to go like this. Okay, so this leaf down here is almost at the 6 o'clock, slightly turned towards 7. The purple leaf here, that's almost at a 12, slightly to the left of it. Okay, so that is your position there. Okay, and that's where we're going to glue it down. Try to get it centered on the little band here. Okay, so I'm just going to take some glue. Hot glue would be the way to go. I despise my hot glue gun, so I'm gonna stay away from that for now. But we'll pop that on like so, right about there, and press and hold that down. Let that set. And then if you want, for the sake of this thing not getting messed around too much or bumped around too much, if you want, you can take these petals here. If you've got some foam squares or some pop dots and you want to kind of push them back up against the wrapper here, you can do that and kind of make this wrap around even more. I would put maybe a little foam square on this petal or this leaf here and just pop that down like so. And then maybe one here. I think this one will kind of hold the rest of them in place. This one, that'll work too. This one might need like 2 of them to kind of hold things in place, just so that it wraps around a lot more and doesn't stick out too much. I'm going to give that a second and just try that real quick with some foam squares. You can definitely use glue if you want. I'm going to just use some foam squares and see how that turns out. I bet that works nicely. So I've got foam squares on that little petal that I mentioned here, this guy here. And I'll take that and just kind of wrap it and press that up against. See how it kind of just hugs the rest of this. I'll do one more on this side just to give you an idea so it doesn't stick out. And then I bet you that during transport this thing will hold up a lot better too. So I put just one little foam square right there, and we'll just take that and just kind of wrap it. Don't pull it too tight. Leave a little bit of slack there. Okay, but you can see how nice that looks. And then probably one on that guy right there. Peel that back and just bring that back like so. There we go. Okay, you get the idea. And then the rest of this, these little curly cues, I think they're fine. I'm starting to get into that mode where I'm over-analyzing things and like looking at stuff too much. Don't do that. No one's going to notice. I know that we're our worst critics, and sometimes it drives us nuts. So don't drive yourself nuts. Just go with what you have. I'm sure it'll look great. And that's it. So again, beautiful little way to customize a bottle of wine for any occasion. And that's it. So take a look at the final photo, because I'm going to add a little bit of bling to this. Not much, just a few things here and there. We'll probably throw some bling on the center of the bow, and we'll see what else. But you guys can obviously decorate it however you'd like and give it your own little spin. But anyway, if you do make this, I'd love to see it, and so would the rest of our dreamers. And you can post your work along with the 26 or 27,000 other dreamers in the official group on Facebook. So head over to your Facebook and do a search for Dreaming Tree Group. And also, if you enjoyed hanging out with me and you enjoyed the video tutorial, head over to YouTube and subscribe to our channel. While you're there, hit the little bell so that you get notifications anytime we release a new product. So I have to wait until I photograph this to tap into it, but I will eventually be tapping into this bottle. So hope you join me, or actually you probably shouldn't drink this because you're gifting it. But anyway, I look forward to crafting with you again.